So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
We made it, people. Yes, we did. We made it. A few minutes late, but that's what happens when you gotta rely on internet, right? And platforms loading and not loading, and then loading and then timing out, and then loading and then not loading. Anyway, glad you're here. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, first it showed us live on YouTube and Facebook, but not Periscope, and then we couldn't get, well, anyway, doesn't matter. I'm glad you're here. Happy Monday! Yay! Hi Melanie. Hi Jason, Mia. And whoever else might be watching later, whether it's the replay or not. And you know what? I have good news tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, we have changed our plans, so we are going to be here tomorrow night at the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. That's right. Thank you guys for sharing that. Appreciate it. I totally do. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the topic of real love versus real hate. And we're going to share with you an article that was written about Billy Graham and the results of some of the feedback as a result of his death, right? I'm also going to share with you 14 athletes whose fame inspired baby names. That's just a fun article, just so you know. And we're going to look at some other news too, including, but not limited to, some stuff having to do with the LGBT activist movement, transgenderism, and other stuff that could get me banned on Facebook, YouTube, and probably Twitter, and anywhere else, just so you know. But ask me if I care, people. All right. How are you guys doing? Doing good? All right. Okay, let's get this started here. All right. So thank you guys for coming in, and as always, you know, it is a challenge sometimes to be an internet show because we're relying on the internet plus all the platforms that we're on to actually all work at the same time. I actually came across this article I want to start with, though. It's titled 14 Athletes Whose Fame Inspired Baby Names. And I think this is an interesting article because yours truly, your sweet and lovable host, was actually named after a character on the Dick Van Dyke Show. In fact, it was the brother of Dick Van Dyke, the character. It was actually his brother in real life. It was Jerry Van Dyke actually played the character. And his name was Stacy on the show, S-T-A-C-E-Y. Blessings BNR. Thank you, Team US. I appreciate that. And so when I read this article, it made me think about way back in 1968, 50 years ago. 50. Yeah, I'm going to be 50 this year. I can't wait. It's going to be so exciting. Anyway, but I'm going to have to wait. So listen to this. Okay, it says here, 0 babies were named Kobe in 1994, a few years before Kobe Bryant joined the NBA. In 2000, the year he won his first NBA championship, 1,432 babies were named Kobe that year. Is that crazy or what? Over the years, there's been a huge surge in babies named after athletes at the height of their popularity. Given the uniqueness of their names, it really makes you remember that the origin of the word fan is fanatic. And then here's the thing. With the Olympics in full swing and having some of the lowest ratings in the history of all mankind this year, interesting to note that Mia, as in Mia Hamm, ranks number 1 on the list. Her career began in 1987. When her career began in 1987, there were 544 babies named Mia. And just so you know, I've never met a Mia until I met Mia, one of our super fan paramedic. But listen to this, Mia, you're going to be blown away by this. In 2016, just 2 years ago, there were 14,336 babies named Mia. I know, and Mia, yours isn't even Mia. Yours is like a Spanish thing. Anyway, so here's a couple other examples, and this was also really interesting too. Peyton Manning in 1995, while he was still in college, there was 453 babies were named Peyton. Now, this is interesting to me because there's a little boy in my Awana class. His name's Peyton, and I had never met a Peyton in person until I met him, and he's only like 10. In 2007, the year he won the Super Bowl MVP, 3,371 babies were named Peyton. Can you believe that? Then Conor, as in Conor McGregor, in 2008, the year his career began, there were 528 babies named Conor, and that's C-O-N-O-R, not N-N-O-R. Then in 2016, the year prior to fighting Floyd Mayweather, there were 1,082 babies were named Conor. I'm going to guess he is a, I don't know why that just started on my computer. I'm gonna guess that he is a boxer. That's my guess. I'm going to shut that off so it doesn't flip here.
Ultimate Fighter. Gotcha.
All right. And then in, let's see. And then Lionel Messi, I don't even know who that is. In 2004, his year fight. Okay. So in 2004, do you know who Lionel Messi is? Because I don't know who that is. It says here in 2004, the year his career began, 122 babies were named Lionel.
And
then
he was the forward for the Argentinian football or soccer team.
He was? Oh, okay. Cool. Well, see, I don't watch Argentinian soccer. Sorry to all my
Football.
Argentinian people out there. Hey, everybody coming in. Let me just say hi to some of you. Shan and Liz and Monica, Rob, David, Advar Wilson. Advar Wilson. Hi, Advar. Is that really your name? Advar? I never... That's an interesting name. Anyway, okay, so Lionel Messi in 2004, his career began. There was 122 babies were named Lionel. And then in 2016, his popularity resulted in 474 babies being named Lionel. Obviously not nearly as popular as Mia Hamm, with 14,000 babies named after her. And then there's Deion Sanders in 1989, the year his career began. 70 babies were named Deion. And then 1996, the year he won the Super Bowl, there were 567 babies were named Deion. So if you want to learn more, you can go over to the website, names.org, and you can do that. And I can honestly tell you, people, right here, for the first time ever, mentioned anywhere in public, in 1992, when I met Randall Bareface. Actually, I met him in 1990. I take that back. In 1990, when I met Bareface, there were 0 people named Bareface.
And now there are 1.
And now there's 1 person named Bareface. However, there's lots of you who call him Bareface now. So, as a result of his internet fame, right here on Bible News Radio. Yay!
Now these stats, we don't know if these children were named after the athletes.
There's just a contrast in it.
We just know that at the height of their fame, a lot of new births, births recorded on birth certificates, they were given names that happened to coincide with the names of the athletes. Coincidence?
Is he a joy kill or what? I think he's kind of a joy kill.
No, but I'd say it's more than coincidence to me.
Well,
this sudden boom and sudden explosion in babies named for a popular athlete, I'd say more than coincidence.
And Chris Bueller is in Facebook. Hey, and there's Kim as well. Kim is in there too, also known as Skittles. I was in the pharmacy today and I saw some Skittles and thought of you. I thought, they come in purple? No. Anyway, so
I just want to say, we can't say definitively for a fact that every one of them was named after an athlete, but given the proximity to the fame of the athletes, I would say the vast majority of them were named for the athlete.
Well, I never met another Stacy until I was like in 8th grade, I think it was, or 9th grade. And then I met a guy named Stacy Kretschy, who is a musician. In fact, I had him on my show years ago before I did live streaming. I actually did tape streaming. That's my joke. It's a joke. Anyway, I taped. and it was funny because he was about the same age as I was. I was like, how did you get your name? He's like, well, it's a weird story. My mom named me because she liked the Dick Van Dyke Show. And, you know, the character of the brother, blah, blah. Yeah, that's how. I go, you got to be kidding me. That's what my mom told me. So at least there was two of us, you know, with that name. But, you know what? I used to hate my name until I learned what it meant, right? What I discovered my name means, it comes from the derivative of the root of Anastasia, which literally means of the resurrection. Yeah. I know, I became a Christian and I discovered what my name meant. I was like, oh my gosh, this means one who shall rise again, literally of the resurrection. So in my name, I actually have the prophecy that I shall rise again, people. Just so you know, so you've been warned. All right, in all seriousness though, let's talk about some of that love and hate stuff. I know, isn't it beautiful, Freckles? I love my name. And it's interesting because in biblical times, names were actually given for a specific purpose. And if you actually want to get really deeply into some interesting genealogy issues, if you look in the book of Genesis, Dr. Chuck Missler, I know, I'm also Jewish, oy vey. But Chuck Missler, he actually breaks down the genealogy in the beginning, and it comes out to an actual saying, which is also prophesying the Messiah coming, which is really, really super cool. Those of you who've gone through Chuck Missler's Learn the Bible in 24 Hours Bible study, which you can watch totally online or buy the book, you probably have heard that. It's super cool. So I'm of the belief that our names were given to us for a reason. So our parents knew what to call us. Hey, you. No. What? Did you say something? No, I'm not talking to you. What? I'm talking to you over there. Sorry. Hey, it's Monday. You know, the jokes will get better over time, just so you know. By the way, I should welcome you all and remind you, don't forget to join my email list, BibleNewsRadio.com. Join it, because in there you'll get info from me and show recaps and stuff. All right. Okay, let's talk about love and hate. You know, Billy Graham went home to heaven a couple days ago, and there has been a lot of news about Billy Graham. In fact, earlier tonight on Facebook, one of my friends was posting some pictures of him, of his casket, which was built by prisoners, by the way, and all this. But there was this article titled, let me find it, because now I gotta get back into my screen. Hold on just a second, one moment while I get back into my screen. I am getting back into my screen right now, people. Right here. Aha, here it is. This is over on the Washington Times. And it's titled Love and Hate in Sharp Contrast. I want you to pay attention to this. It's very important.
That's interesting. That's not the title of the article. I mean, it's just me, but I'm sure the content is the same. It's just when I went into the...
Really? Because it says love and hate on mine.
No, it does in sharp contrast. That's interesting.
That's
when I go into the reader view...
Okay, anyway, let me read the article.
Yeah, read the article, and all will be well.
This is by Robert Knight, and if you don't know who he is, he's a columnist. He's been a columnist a long, long time. Actually had him on our show a long time ago. He used to work at Concerned Women for America and some other public policy think tanks on the right. But this is his article. In 1953, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the Reverend Billy Graham saw that his crusade audience was segregated in roped-off sections. He personally tore the barriers down. Over the next 6 decades, he preached the gospel of Jesus Christ to more than 200 million people in 185 countries. Without giving an inch of theological ground, he adjusted his message to the moment, for example, dropping the name crusade for his rallies so as not to offend Muslims that he was trying to reach for Christ. Scrupulously non-political, he did something in 2016 for which the left will never forgive him. He came out for God's definition of marriage as the union of one man and one woman and urged Christians to vote their biblical values. His death at age 99 last Wednesday garnered plaudits and appreciation around the globe, but it also revealed how deeply some on the left hate all things Christian. Teen Vogue writer Lauren Dukas actually called Mr. Graham an epithet. Did I say that right? Epithet. And said he was evil. I was going to share other examples, but why give them any currency? As a thoroughly Orthodox Christian, Reverend Graham was in good company with Christian organizations falsely labeled as hate groups. And I'm clicking to read more. Okay, wait. I'll make sure that I can see the page now. Okay. As hate groups. The biggest perpetrator of this slander is the Southern Poverty Law Center, also known as SPLC, the media's go-to source. Last week, the SPLC, a far-left foundation headquartered in Montgomery, Alabama, issued a report with this lengthy title, "The Year in Hate, Trump Buoyed White Supremacists in 2017, Sparking Backlash Among Black Nationalist Groups." Did I say the word buoyed right?
Yeah, or buoyed.
Buoyed. I don't know. I can't speak English very well. But anyway.
There's whatever your preference.
Okay. The report identifies 954 organizations as hate groups, up from 917 in 2016. Buried deep in a Washington Post article is the detail that the KKK chapters have dropped from 130 to 72. Okay, so that's telling right there. A number of good and decent Christian organizations like the Family Research Council are still on the hate list and hate map, along with Mass Resistance. This conservative parents group is led by Jewish father Brian Kamaker, who became active after discovering his children being brainwashed with pansexual propaganda in his local public school in Massachusetts. By the way, Brian Kamaker is an acquaintance of mine. He's been fighting this fight for a long time, just so you know. Also on the hate list are Nazis, white nationalists, and even some black nationalist groups. The report says the latter groups should not be equated with black activist groups such as Black Lives Matter that work to eliminate systematic racism in American society and its institutions. Really? Black Lives Matter, BLM, has worked overtime stoking racial animosity and fomenting hatred against police. On August 29th, 2015, protesters with the local St. Paul branch of BLM chanted "Pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon," hours after a sheriff's deputy was ambushed and executed in Houston. The SPLC report also lists a number of anti-government groups for whose rise the SPLC blames who else but President Trump. His radical views and bigotry may be energizing them in the same way he has invigorated hate groups. Over the past few years, the transgender movement has become the new spear point of the left's relentless assault on America's foundational Judeo-Christian culture. Just when you think they've gone too far, they push harder when encountering little or no resistance. At this past weekend's Conservative Political Action Conference, aka CPAC, in Washington, the LGBT activist group Log Cabin Republicans, just so you know, were welcomed even though they promote the radical homosexual and transgender agenda embraced by the Democratic Party. And I should also say conservative pundit Ann Coulter is a big supporter of the Log Cabin Republicans, just in case you didn't know that. And there are other people too. She will willingly go and speak at the Log Cabin Republicans because of money. Yeah, they might actually be conservative politically, but if they're in support of homosexual, issues or whatever, that's liberal. That's not conservative, right? It's not biblical either. And Anne identifies as a Christian too, so buyer beware. Meanwhile, Mass Resistance is one of the few conservative groups fighting the LGBT agenda in the schools. They were sent baggage check and told it wasn't welcome. The stated reason was remarks from a 2015 event in which Mr. Kamaker urged parents and conservatives to take a harsher tone against those who would corrupt and endanger innocent children. He did not sing from the Go Along, Get Along songbook that has accompanied conservative acquiescence to moral decline. In Ohio, on February 16th, Hamilton County Judge Sylvia Sieve Hendon, who ran as a Republican in 2010, actually took a 17-year-old girl away from her parents because they refused to allow her to be given hormone treatments as part of a female-to-male transition. We're going to talk about another similar story, if it's not, it might be the same one in a little bit. Not wanting your precious daughter turned into a fake male now counts as child abuse, just so you know. Then there's this radical LGBT activist Chai Feldblum, who crowned that gays win, Christians lose when rights conflict, has been reappointed by President Trump to the powerful Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC for short. This is part of the reason why a lot of conservatives didn't want to vote for Trump, because he does have some pro-gay leaning there. Anyway, she was first seated by Barack Hussein Obama and has aggressively advanced an LGBT legal agenda aimed at criminalizing Christianity, which, by the way, Robert Knight is very familiar with the book Criminalization of Christianity by Janet Folger Porter from many years ago. Anyway, millions of Christians turned out to help to elect Mr. Trump. They deserve better. Her current term ends soon, and the renomination should be withdrawn. In his last years, Billy Graham often spoke of his belief that America's only hope lay in a Christian revival against the rise of a coldly pagan culture that devalues life and families and rejects God's love. His son Franklin, whose Samaritan's Purse charity has aided countless people in dire circumstances around the world, has picked up the mantle and run with it. May God grant him protection, wisdom, and influence. Robert Knight is a Washington Times contributor, and he has a new book out called Confronting Lies and Hate, Responding with Truth and Grace, which we should probably get him on the show to talk about. So I share this just because, you know, those of us who are in the know, we already know this, but a lot of you guys might not be aware of all this stuff if you don't follow it like I do. And it's funny because, to me, you can't have it both ways. You know, the book of, I think it's 1 Kings, might be 2 Kings. Bareface would know. He's the real biblical scholar amongst us. There's that battle between...
Biblical student, not a scholar.
There's that battle between Elijah and the gods of Baal on Mount Carmel. Where's that at? 1 Kings 17?
Yes. I was going to say 18, but maybe 17. You may be right.
I don't know. That's why I mentioned how great you are. Anyway, in that book, the story of Elijah, you know, he goes up and he's challenged to this duo against the gods of Baal, which are the false gods, you know. And basically they're like, oh yeah, we're going to have this contest. We're going to call out on our God versus your God. And whatever God answers first basically wins. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have this offering, and we're going to see whoever's God answers and burns up this offering. That will be the real God. But here's the bottom line. Elijah won. Just so you know, I ruined it for you if you didn't know the story. He won. But there's a famous line in that, and it says, it says...
It does.
It does.
It is chapter 18.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It says, I'm trying to remember exactly how it says it. Okay.
I don't know. There's several great lines.
Yeah.
It
Well,
opens with how long will you halt between two opinions.
That's it. Yeah, go ahead. You say that. Just say it, Bareface. Say it, because I'm totally having a blank. It's here in my head. It's just, it's kind of like stuck. Go ahead. Suck it out.
And Eliyahu, or Elijah, came unto all the people, and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But
Right.
if Baal, then follow him.
Right. So if the Lord be God, follow him. But if it be Baal, or Baal, as Bareface likes to say it, then follow him. So anyway, so that is, that is the thing. Yeah, you know the feeling, do you? Hey, you know what? I live my life being me. You are so pretty, miss. Just wanted to say, aw, that's nice. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, anyway, so the point is, if God is God, we got to follow him, right? If Jesus is God and he says he is, then we have to follow him. And this is where, the world hates it, because when a Christian stands up for biblical values and what's in the Bible, and we have a biblical worldview and we stand up for these things, the world is going to naturally hate us because they're following Baal, to put it bluntly. Okay. I mean, their eyes are blinded spiritually. And of course we need to have compassion and empathy, and we need to pray for them and reach out to them and share the gospel with them. In fact, I was reading this morning in a John Maxwell book about the topic of, failure. Okay. And apparently somebody came to John Maxwell one time and said, do you ever feel like you fail when you share the gospel? And John Maxwell said, no. And the person was kind of like shocked. And they said, no, let me re-ask you this question, just in case you didn't hear it right the first time. Do you ever feel like you fail when you share the gospel? And John Maxwell's like, no. If you're asking me if somebody becomes a Christian every single time I share the gospel, the answer is no. What, you don't feel like that's failure? And John Maxwell, and of course I'm paraphrasing, he basically says, no, I don't feel like that's failure, because it's not my job to convert somebody. And that's something I gotta really, encourage you in, is look, you keep sharing the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. You keep standing up for what you know to be biblical truth. Marriage is one man, one woman. Because you know what? If you don't keep saying it, other people won't. But here's the thing. People need leaders, and we're all leading somebody, whether you want to admit it or not. If there's two of you, if you're leading somebody behind you, guess what? You're leading somebody. Yeah, and that's right. Our job is to spread the word. Our job isn't to grow it. That's God's job. It even says so in 1 Corinthians, I think it says, he's the one that creates the increase. We just have seed, and we throw it out there. And wherever it lands on that ground, wherever it is, some lands on good ground, some lands on hard ground, some gets a little bit and then comes up and then dies. Bottom line is, it's not our responsibility to cause the growth. It's our responsibility to share the good news. That's what Jesus said. Go out, therefore, ye into the world and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you know what? This is the cool thing. Billy Graham was that representative for our century, right? I mean, let's face it. He's with God now. But if he would have lived till the end of the year, he would have been 100, which is like 50 years older than me. I mean, that's like 50 years. That's like half a century. I don't know. I could say it's 5 multiples of 10 too if I really wanted to pull that out. But anyway, the point is, people admired Billy Graham because he was faithful to the very end of just sharing the basic gospel truth, which is that Jesus loves us. He was born of a virgin. He grew up, and he died ultimately for us, for our sin. How dare I say the word sin? But the problem is we are all sinners, and we need to be saved. And that's the point. Today our culture says, whatever. It's like a crossless Christianity. And it's really interesting. If you look at our society and how churches have been devolved away from the cross, you'll notice that there's so many churches out there that don't even highlight a cross. There is no cross in the building. And you know what? A crossless Christianity is powerless. There's zero power in it. There's zero salvation in it, because without the cross, we can't be saved. Why? Because Jesus died on the cross for our sin, right? I mean, let's just face it. None of us are perfect. He died on the cross for our sin, because he was the perfect sacrifice, and he laid down his life. We didn't kill him. He laid it down. And there's, just saying, Jesus laid down his life for us. He said it is finished when he did it. And it was totally cool and awesome that Jesus did that. But it doesn't end there. And that's the best part. It doesn't end there. Because if it ended there, then boy, we would be most pitied among all men. Like, oh my gosh, this fairy tale of a story I believe in, it ends there where Jesus dead? Are you kidding me? No. Because then a couple days later, 3 days later, oh, it's that old hymn song, up from the grave he arose, a mighty victor over his foes. You know, that's what Jesus did. And not only did he rise from the dead and appear to a woman, and then the Jewish culture appeared to her first, thereby making her the first witness to go out and share it, which in the court of law and the Jewish history, in the culture of that day, the woman's voice was like, meh, you're considered invalid in a court of law. If it didn't really happen today, we wouldn't know it. Right? Because it was a woman that gave the message first. And I also should add, it was also a woman that Jesus revealed he was the Messiah to first, by the way. It was a woman at the well. And we don't know her name, but we do know that he loved her, and she went back and evangelized. And a lot of people believed in him as the Messiah then. And then, of course, he talked to Peter and he said, "Who do you say that I am?" And Jesus said, he said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." We know who Jesus is, which is why people hate talking about him. And everybody likes to bring up these arguments over here, over there, blah, blah. And it has nothing to do with who the real Jesus is, you know? The real Jesus died for us. He was perfect, spotless, Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. And he rose from the dead. Okay? Just saying, people. And not only did he rise from the dead, this is the coolest part. Not only did he do that, but Jesus has such a sense of humor. He would be like, "Hey, guys, hold on just a second." He's like, "I'm going to walk into that room and scare him. I'm going to walk through the wall. Watch this." He's probably having a communication with the Father at the same time. "Hey, Dad, look at this." Ah! I think Jesus is so funny. He is. He's really fun. Anyway, the point is, he hung out afterwards. He ate, so he had a real body. He debunked all of the things that skeptics today will say, "Oh, this didn't happen, blah, blah. It was just a figment of their imagination. It was a mass hallucination, blah, blah." None of that is true. It's all baloney. Jesus physically rose from the dead. He ate afterwards some fish. In fact, he made the meal. And then he recommissioned the disciples, in particular Peter. And then after about 40 days or so, he ascended. And then he said, "Hey, you know what? In the same way that you're seeing me leave, I'm going to come back again." And this is where we're at in history. You know what? Because look, the rapture could take place anytime. The second coming could take place anytime, right? So our job in the 21st century is to continue sharing the gospel, because here's the thing. There are still people in the world that don't have Bibles, believe it or not. There are still people in the world who've never heard the good news of what Jesus did for us. And that is love, people. It's love that we got people going into these places, and they're spending their life learning languages so that they could share just the gospel with people. That's nuts. By the world standards, that's completely insane. But by God's standards, it's totally cool, because people will lay down their life for the message of Christ, the real Christ. You know what? I've had Jesus is the story of Noah, a total lie. You do have doubts. Well, what's interesting about Noah, and this is a good thing that you bring that up. Let me just address that for a minute. Noah was a prophet. He was. So was Jonah. But Noah, he was a man who God called for an appointed time. And in Noah's day, he literally built that ark for hundreds of years before rain ever took place. So that's crazy in itself right there, that the world during that time was completely different than it is today in the atmosphere anyway. Because water was coming up from the earth and dew was coming down from above, but it had never rained before. So the people of that day, they mocked Noah. "Hey, do you have an umbrella?" Actually, I have the whole Keith Green song in my head, that old, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Well, there were no other boats. That's the point, because there was no rain. Or, well, there was water. I don't know, were there boats during that time? There might have been. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I imagine there was.
But anyway, The point, though, is that
Travel on water.
Noah had to build the ark in order to save the people that were going to hear his message.
But he built his boat in location far from any shore.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. He did it on God's word, though. He did what God told him to do, and he did it. So he was the only one to make a boat. I guess. He was the only one to make an ark. By the way, you can go to Kentucky, and you can go to see the Ark Encounter that Answers in Genesis put up. They actually have rebuilt the actual, dimensions of Noah's Ark up there. So I think that'd be really fun to go see, actually. Actually, the Ham brothers invited me up for a behind-the-scenes thing if I ever get up there. But anyway, Noah, though, he was preaching a message of judgment that the world didn't want to hear. And they mocked him for it. That's the thing. They mocked him. They made fun of him. They thought he was some kooky old guy building an ark or a boat and all this other stuff. But it was the people who believed and listened to him that were saved. And there wasn't that many, as you all know. And of course, the land as well. God's judgment came on the world. I think in part because of the Nephilim and the hybrids and all that. The DNA had been, mingled and messed with. And so God was judging the earth because of that, because there was nothing good. I mean, it was just evil continually, it says, which, hello, I think we're close to it. Maybe not as bad. But the point is that God is so merciful, and the Old Testament mentions love just as much as it mentions judgment. And people don't realize that because we have these stories where it's like the God of the Old Testament is just a God of judgment. No, he isn't. So anyway, there you have it. All right, I want to get on to, our show's almost up. Okay, first thing I should do then is thank our sponsor, Ariel Ministries. If you love us like Ariel does, then support our sponsor because they will keep supporting us. And Camp Shoshana is the camp up in upstate New York in the Adirondack Mountains. You can sign up for camp, and you can check that out. Learn more if you go to ariel.org. Don't forget, you can buy anything in the store. You can save 20% when you use the coupon code Bible News. Bible News. Actually, Jesus doesn't endorse slavery, just so you know. Anyway, the Camp Shoshana is the School of Messianic Jewish Studies. Program Messianic Jewish Studies has Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum teaching, Muddle Ballaston, who was on our show a couple days ago, Roger Leby, who's also a doctor. Well, he's got THD. Is that a doctor? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Dr. Roger Leby and Richard Hill, who's also a PhD, Messianic pastor. Those guys are the four main teachers. And like you guys know, muddle through. You know what? I think that's an old picture of him because he's got gray hair now. I think. Anyway, bottom line, if you like Muddle and his teaching, he's a student of the Camp Shoshana and all that. Yeah. And anyway, if you like what we do and our knowledge or whatever, we're students of Ariel Ministries and stuff. So this is actually a great ministry. Just, so you know. Oh, and the Feast of Purim, there is a teaching for the Feast of Purim. It's like $3. If you just search for it, then buy it, then you can save 20% on that $3 too. So it's not a lot of money. And I still have pinned to my Bible News Radio tweet on Twitter, because you're no one if you're not on Twitter. The Modern State of Israel and Bible Prophecy, 16 pages. Don't forget to download that too. Okay?
For free.
For free. That's free. Absolutely free. All right. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Let's see here.
Pillars?
That wasn't it, actually.
Okay.
But you can talk about it. Yeah. How about you talk about that while I'm looking for my other thing?
All right. Well, every successful organization has pillars that hold it up. Pillars of the community. And you can become a pillar of the Bible News Radio Committee. The community. Yeah.
That's easy for you to say.
A pillar of the Bible News Radio Community by committing to donating $25 a month or maybe more. And your donation helps us to continue our daily work teaching the gospel, discipling believers, and evangelizing the world. Also helps us to continue to bring the best guests in Christian media just head on over to Bible News Radio /give. And if you don't want to become a pillar or just a one-time donation, those are appreciated too. So check it out, and thank you much for doing that. And so now that Stacy have you got it back together?
I have got it back together.
All right, so I'll bring you back. Here you are.
Okay, let's see here. Okay. I just got breaking news from NRB. Apparently, schedules are changing all over the place due to Mike Pence's visit to NRB and Billy Graham's funeral, which many of our clients are attending. So it looks like some of the interviews that I have scheduled are getting changed because of Billy Graham's going home to be with heaven. That's all right. We'll deal with that later. By the way, we have a great lineup of people that we're going to be talking to this week at NRB. I'm super excited and all that. But I want to read you this article here over on LifeSite News titled, Judge Strips Christian Parents of Daughter for Not Letting Her Transition to Male. Yeah. Now, what kind of judge? Now, if I was teaching Awana, you know what I would say? I would say, okay, classroom of little kids, but you guys are big kids. You're big adults. I would say, okay, now is this a wicked judge? Or is this a righteous judge? Yeah, there we go. That's what I would say. I would say, is he a good judge or a bad judge? Just from the headline. And then the kids will go, oh, I know. And then they would go, whatever they would go. Anyway, okay, listen to this. It says, Ohio, February 22nd. Parental rights suffered a blow in Ohio on Friday when a juvenile court judge stripped parents of their daughter after they refused to go along with her transition to, quote, male, unquote. It's quoted. Hamilton County Juvenile Court Judge Sylvia C.V. Hendon, who we mentioned earlier, awarded full custody to the girl's maternal grandparents in a case that raises grave concerns about parental rights in the era of self-proclaimed, quote, gender identity, unquote. So, okay, so check this. So the maternal grandparents are the mom's parents. So apparently the grandparents and the parents, there's probably some conflict in that family, just a hunch. This is a major setback for advocates of parental rights and religious freedom, the Federalist's Nicole Russell assessed. The judge awarded custody to the teen's grandparents who were, in the court's eyes, more accepting of the teen's wishes to receive sex-change drugs. We think the grandparents are the ones who have an open mind regarding sex-change chemicals, the court-appointed guardian testified, while the parents have clearly indicated that they're not open to it. Those horrible, rotten people. Just so you know. No, I'm just kidding. The 17-year-old female says she wants to become, quote, male, unquote, and has threatened to kill herself. Of course. The girl's parents say that the, quote, transition is not in their daughter's best interest. They sought out Christian counseling and said, those evildoers. In her ruling, Hendon went so far as to suggest that politicians legislate a, quote, pathway for gender treatment in cases of parental conflict. The court would be remiss if it did not take this opportunity to encourage the legislature to act in crafting legislation that would give the juvenile courts of this state a framework by which it could evaluate a minor petitioner's right to consent to gender therapy. That type of legislation would give a voice and a pathway to youth. Yeah, right? I know, right? Ugh. Russell predicts such legislation will only further eliminate parental rights, beckoning lawmakers to draw up legislation on the topic and stripping the parents of custody seems to align more with a police state than a free society in which parents have primary authority to steward their children, she commented. She said the clear message to parents from this judiciary seems to be mutilate your child or we will do it for you. The ruling opens up the possibility of puberty-blocking sex change drugs being added to the no parent asked list, which in many states already includes allowing children to receive contraception and even abortion without parental consent. Now, I'm going to stop right there and just vent for a minute. So imagine that I was a parent, you were a parent. Well, I'm not a parent, just so you know. But if I was a parent, trust me, I wouldn't, if I found out my children were taking drugs, like for abortion, first of all, to kill the baby, I'd be like, really? You gave my kid what? I would be down there in their face. I'd be like, you'd have to hold me back. But then if I found out somehow my kid was able to get sex drugs to alter their gender, hormone replacement basically is what it is, without telling me, I would be like, what the heck? Seriously? That would be, right, David? Wouldn't you, David? You would be like, David would be all over it. He'd be like, yeah, me and Stacy are going to whip these guys. Be like, and they're talking about, parental rights versus government rights. It's true. And I have said it year and year and year and year again. David can confirm that I've said it because he's listened to me a long time. That, you know what? That it's a battle between religious freedom and the LGBT agenda. It really is. And it's so sad because it infringes on parental rights. Remember what Hillary said years ago? Remember what she said? It takes a village, people. Yep, it does. It takes a big, big, fat, liberal village to raise your child the way we want. It's sad when we are young, we make some decisions that we regret in adulthood. Jesus help us. Of course, we all make mistakes, but this is ridiculous. Okay, the article goes on to say, it's an ominous sign for the state to argue that because parents oppose a child's hormonal treatment on the basis of religion, the parents okay, I can say this. Hold on, bear with me. The parents presumptively, I should get a bell ring for that one. I said it. Lack openness to the children's best interests, Attorney Mary Rice Hassan of the Ethics and Public Policy Center observed. Hendon's ruling revealed that doctors at Cincinnati Children's Hospital were quick to diagnose a girl as transgender. The hospital's transgender program has apparently never met a normal child. The rate of transgender diagnosis at Children's TP is 100%, program head Dr. Lee Ann E. Conyard told the judge. While Hendon expressed concern that Cincinnati Children's diagnosed every kid brought to them as needing treatment, the judge nevertheless revealed her own bias when she ruled that the teenage girl has a legitimate right to pursue life with a different gender identity than the one assigned at birth, unquote. In 2015, Cincinnati Children's TP has just over 100 patients. By the end of 2017, they were being paid to, quote, treat nearly 1,000. The program recently received $2 million for more minors to be treated. The court's determination to allow the child to pursue opposite-sex transition was undaunted by the girl's medical records of anxiety and depression, nor by her suicidal mental state, nor by court testimony that she was both mentally and emotionally not stable enough to make any long-term life-changing decision. Of course, in this culture, this victim culture there, instead of trying to address, as Walt Heyer would say, the comorbid disorder associated with these feelings, which would be anxiety and depression, instead of actually addressing that, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to add the hormone drugs into it and screw them up even more and give them, quote, what they kind of wanted. It's like, ugh. Commentator Jonathan Van Maren said the ruling is a threat to parents. Yeah, hello. Gender ideologies that are barely a decade old can now result in the loss of your children, and these threats will only continue to grow, he said. It is absolutely essential that we make our voices heard, he added. The ideologues I did it. Will never be satisfied until children of all parents, especially their opponents, are indoctrinated into their ideas. There we go. I did it. I read the whole thing. Stumbled over a couple words, but hey, you got the message. And it's just barefaced. You got any thoughts on this? Because really, I mean, this is like...
Well, unfortunately, it's an outgrowth of something that's been in the works in a long time, and they don't care about this girl. The powers, political powers, don't care about this girl. I was going to say the medical establishment, but it's not the establishment. It's when you get down to it, it's a fringe in the medical community that are promoting this transgender stuff. But they're promoting it not because they care about the welfare of this girl, obviously. It's because it helps perpetuate their fantasy that, there is no God. There are no absolutes. We are what we make of ourselves, not just mentally and vocationally and all that, but even physically. Birth does not determine anything, even our gender. We're in charge of that. We're the captain of our destiny, and let us prove it by altering these children. Which begins, of course, primarily in the public schools with the indoctrination that, hey, you can be any sex that you want to be. You can be none if you want to be. It's no longer just 2 or 3. There's, look it up on Wikipedia and the different flags of the different types of sexualities, that are pure figments of imagination. And it's just an act of rebellion on the part of these adults that are able to bolster their rebellion and their fanciful ideas as evidence. Well, look, see, watch us turn this girl into a boy. She doesn't want to be. She's not going to be restricted by her stupid birth gender. Look at all the children where we're able to, transition into their true self, which has nothing to do with creation. And mankind is not created in the image of God. God is dead. We create ourselves in the image of us, our imaginations, and our fantasies. Just watch us. And that's what I think it's all about.
Amen. And amen. All right. Thank you for taking over that. I had to respond to a quick email. There's a lot of people who are going to the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, flying into Nashville in a couple of days. And anyway, I have like 20 people scheduled to interview you guys. 20 people. You want to hear who we got on the list? How much time we got left?
About 7 minutes.
All right. So coming up on our special coverage, Dr. Richard Land is going to be our guest.
Well, I guess if we're going to end at 55 minutes, we got like 2 minutes.
That's okay. I have enough time. Dr. Alex McFarland is going to be my guest. Samaritan Ministries. Jesse Pruitt. How many of you guys know who Jesse Pruitt is? He's a worship Christian singer. I don't know if you know who he is, but we just scored an interview with him. Thank you for that. How do you say your name? Daisha? Did I say it right? Daisha? Did I say it right? Close? Maybe? Permission denied. Thank you. Jesse Pruitt. Anyway, the Benham brothers, David and Jason, they are going to be there. Daisha. Okay. Daisha. I'll try to remember. Thank you for coming in. Let's see. Benham brothers is going to be there. There's a brand new movie out called Beautifully Broken. We're going to be talking to the producer or somebody of that movie. Michael W. Smith did one of the lead music songs on that movie, by the way. Kim Davis. You guys know Kim Davis, the one that refused to give marriage licenses to homosexuals after the Supreme Court overruled the will of the people. I'm going to get to interview her. She's got a brand new book out. That's going to be fun. Krish. There's a new movie called Staines. Staines. It's about Graham Staines, who is a missionary. Ann White, Robert Toone, Linda Ferguson, David Teams, Todd Nettleton from Voice of the Martyrs. We're going to interview him. Randy Dawkins and Wayne Faust. And a couple other women. I don't have their full names in front of me. But those are some of the interviews we got lined up for NRB this week. So I would ask for your prayers for divine appointments and stamina, and that my right foot doesn't hurt, because I really hurt my ankle, just so you know. But I can still walk, don't worry. I'm good there. But anyway, tomorrow night we'll be back here at Bible News Radio, 7 p.m. Central Time, for more news and headlines and other fun stuff. And when we do NRB, we'll actually also, be doing some periscopes or whatever, kind of off and on throughout the day, or maybe Snapchat, I don't know, or Instagram. You guys should tweet me. Let me know what you want. Instagram, Snapchat, or Periscope updates throughout the show. And what I want to do also is, again, thank all of you who always tune in all the time, who support us, who love us, who pray for us, who give us money, encourage us behind the scenes, occasionally yell at us once in a while when I need it, which, is more than barefaced, because, just saying. And just say thank you, because we really appreciate it. All right, so remember, be bold, stand up, and go with God because he loves you. And we'll be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Don't forget, join our email list at BibleNewsRadio.com.